check. Check, 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 yeah. Hey, if you guys are just tuning in here, let me know if you can hear my audio, the guitar and my vocals fine. I'm getting a little bit of lag on this end, but trying to use the lab this time, so let me know if it works. Great. Perfect. Wonderful. I never hear perfect. That's wonderful. Great. Lawrence, Bassy, good to have you. Thanks for tuning in. Give it another minute here or so. Well, howdy, everybody. Happy Monday evening here. And it's been a while since I've done a live stream here on YouTube. And so I wanted to come on tonight and talk about mixing major and minor during your leads. So if you play country stuff or blues stuff or just a lot of 1-4-5 stuff, the best way I like to get people started mixing major and minor sounds, to get that little taste of bluesiness, is to start major and then add that little piece of your minor third to start tagging melody lines. So if you've seen the video where I've done going over Allman Brothers' Midnight Rider, if you haven't, after this live stream is over, I'll put a link in the description. This is a classic example, and this is a Southern rock kind of staple, where you're kind of major through the whole progression, and then at the very end, it kind of just tags minor, and it just gives it that bluesiness, right? So you got that... So this is in the key of D, and you have D, E, and F sharp, right? So this is just D major. The D major scale. See that little piece right there where it goes for your minor third and your flat seven, and then back to major. That is a classic example. So check this out. I got a little loop pedal going here, and I'm going to go through it a few times through and kind of expand on this. And I want you to just take a listen, and I'll kind of talk you through it. But what I'm thinking here is D major. I'm thinking D major. You guys have played D, you know, your pentatonic of your one chord so many times over simple 1-4-5 progressions. But when you get to the end of it, just try tagging minor for a second. Don't think about theory that much. Just think you're tagging with your minor third. Check it out. So this is D. Go to G, my 4 chord. Back to 1. Here comes your 5, A, 4, G, 1, D. So just start doing major licks. save it till the end. So that is absolutely the #1 place I recommend everybody starting when they're first mixing major and minor pentatonics. So for those of you that are a little bit more stuck in one shape, right, or two shapes, just a little bit more beginner, I'm going to break this down to you in a very close-up way so you can really see. So check this out. Let's say you have it just on one line. I recommend all of you memorizing this for just, you got to have this in your bag forever. If you're in a major song, just remember 1, 2, 3. Whole step, right? 1, 2, 3. That is, I mean, so many melodies are just 1, 2, 3, and you might have a 4 ahead of it or a 7 behind it, but you can do so much. So many melodies. And then what you want to think about is here is your flat 3. That's your minor third. That's what makes it different from major or minor. Hey, I'm so glad this is helpful. For all you guys, please chime in. If you have any questions, any examples you want to go over. I just have this one thing in mind, but this is an open forum, so let's ask whatever you want. We can go in any direction you want to go. So I'm going to hit this track again, and it's just a 1, 4, 5. It's D, G, and A, and I'm just going to stay in this zone. But when I get to the end, right, and I feel like I want to say something bluesy, I'm going to hit that F instead of the F sharp, just minor for a second. You don't have to know any crazy music theory. You know that kind of southern rock bluesy sound. And the bluesy sound is that minor third over that major progression, right? Listen to it one more time. Keep it simple with these 3 notes. Oh man, thank you very much. That is extremely, I really appreciate it. That's very generous of you. Thank you so much. I'll start over. Just 1, 2, 3. Do it again. That 2 cells to 5 chord. Put that in your memory bank. Right, let's do it again. There's your 4. So I haven't added any bluesiness yet, right? You hear that? It just tags it, just one note, just save it. Expand a little bit for those of you that know this pattern a little better. Remember that 1, 2, 3 works from every root. There's that 5. So there you go. That's your quick little takeaway for how to start mixing major and minor sounds. So Grace Addy 16 says, that's enough to sound good though. Well, no, but I'm trying to make it very, very simple. So you got 3 notes. You got the root, you got the second, and you got the major third. But then when you get at the very end there, if you want to say something bluesy, you know, wherever you hear it should be bluesy, just switch that major third to a minor third for a second and then resolve back. Obviously, there's so many other parts to sounding good. You know, you got to have your vibrato, you got to have, you know, good tone, you got to have time, you know, your timing and all that stuff. But as far as just mixing major and minor sounds, that's a great place to start. So if you guys are just tuning in, we're talking about how to mix major and minor sounds, especially when you're taking leads. I just talked about doing it melodically, doing a simple 3-note melody. One other thing I will add, and I want you to ask questions. If anybody has any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. One thing I also want to add is the 4 chord. The 4 chord is always game to play minor over, because again, what we're trying to do when we play minor over a major progression is sound bluesy, right? That's that sound that we hear in our head, that minor third over a major third in a chord, right? You're teasing that third. Now, for those of you that play a lot of blues, you know that typically your 1, 4, and 5 chord are all dominant. So you're technically in 3 different keys, but you're in the neighborhood of 1. So like, let's say I'm in A, and I would have A7, D7, and E7, right? So, but even if you're playing country stuff or singer-songwriter or whatever, and you're not playing dominant chords, right? You can mimic that blues sound of going to a dominant 4 chord by switching to minor over that. And the reason for that is, and I'll let you hear it, so I'm not just talking. The reason for that is that when you play that dominant 4 chord, when you add in that flat 7, so for example, in this D7 here, I'm adding in a C. That C, of course, is the minor third of A. C sharp is the major third of A. So when I'm going from A7 or A to D7, I'm getting this movement. A major with the C sharp to A minor with the C. That's it. That's all you need to know. So when you go over a 4 chord, whenever, you can make that super bluesy sound for a second if you want the bluesiness in the middle, you know, not necessarily at the end, by just adding that in. So check it out. Let me delete my old loop and I'll make a new one. So I'm just going to do a 1, 4, 5 in A. I'm just going to keep it straight major chords, okay? This is the 1, right? Now when I go to the 4, I can mimic that bluesiness, right? That dominant 7. And I don't have to do it every time. So here's your 5, 4, 1. Here it comes around again. Here's the turnaround. Major. Here's your 4 chord. Make it minor. Make it major again. See, I just waited and did it minor again over that 4. So keep trying to do this. Every time you get to 4, make it minor. To major. Does that make sense to you guys? If you have any questions, please jump in here. And if you're just tuning in, we're talking about how to begin, not advanced stuff, how to begin adding minor sounds in major progressions. So whether you play country stuff or blues, you know, you're getting major thirds, and that bluesy sound is adding the minor thirds. So just to recap, 2 ways to start. One is use it as a melodic tag. You're thinking major all day, and when you want to add that little bit of that dirty melody, a little bit of the bluesiness, that's when you're thinking minor. You're thinking start with the flat 3, do a flat 7 as well, you know, whatever, but that's it. The other way is to realize that if you want to imply a more bluesy progression, let's play minor every time the 4 chord comes around. Now, obviously, you don't have to do it every time, but if you want to practice it, get in the habit of putting a loop on, putting a track on. If you're jamming with somebody, just think anytime the 4 chord comes around, even if it's not dominant, just play minor. Just play minor of your tonic, you know, so if you're in the key of A, when D comes through, instead of playing A major, play A minor, and then when the other chords come back, go back to major, right? If you just do that, you're really going to get the sound in your ear and just the feeling under your fingers of mixing the 2. And I think that you'll find that once you get used to mixing major and minor, that's where a lot of the magic is in those. That's just where a lot of the magic is, man. It's just, you know, being tasteful in where you use that is that's the kind of guitar playing that I really identify with. So anyhow, let's open it up to some questions. And yes, so Grace, I don't know if that's your first name or whatever, but I do play hybrid, which is hard for beginners. I know that. And I really am pretty much just talking about harmony and melody tonight. This technique of hybrid stuff, I really wasn't going to dig into. I really want to keep it focused on just single note lines or just doing your basic, you know, pentatonic run licks that you can do with the pick. This, you know, once you get used to doing it, you don't even realize you do it anymore. And so I understand why you would say that. But yeah, just try to, you can do all this stuff with a pick or with one finger, with a thumb. Just get used to the fact that it's just that one note difference. All right, what else we have here? Good, perfect sense. So hoof-hearted. So do you start with minor and then switch to major? So no, I was actually doing the opposite. So if you've seen a lot of my videos, you'd probably heard me say that the major third always wins. What that means is that if you have 2 thirds, if you have a major third and a minor third being played in some harmonic context, being that the major third is a half step higher and it is a more powerful note, right? Because it's a leading tone up a fourth, right, to your next cycle, like if you're in that perfect fifth. But don't even worry about that. Like it's a stronger sound. So if it's in there, it's going to push towards that harmony. It's just going to make it sound more major. It happens in a lot of music, and it's totally cool. I love it when it happens, but it is far more common when mixing major and minor to play minor notes over a major progression. Because typically when you're playing a minor progression, adding in major thirds doesn't necessarily make it sound bluesy. It kind of makes it sound like it's moving key for a second. You know what? I'll show you. Let's reset this. Point is that typically speaking, when you're mixing major and minor, you're adding minor over major because it's that bluesy sound that we all know and love. But watch this. I'm going to play a minor 1-4-5, right? Keep it in the same key. We'll do A, D, and E. So A minor, D minor, and E minor. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to throw some C sharps in there to make it sound A major. And you're going to hear that it changes the tonality in a sense where it doesn't sound all that right. It kind of sounds out of key. Some people can really sell it and are really, really damn good at it, you know? But this is, well, just listen. A minor, D minor, A minor. So typically you're playing minor over this, right? 4-chord. Still minor. I haven't tried to add any major thirds yet. So now I'll try to add it a little bit over the 1. Listen to it. Now over the 4. It's over the 5. Doesn't really work, right? You can sell it a little bit, you know, if you're pretty slick, but you gotta be fast and you gotta just be pretty sure of yourself and you gotta land minor is the point. Whereas if you're doing minor thirds over a major progression, they work, you know, they work over the 1, they work over the 4, less over the 5, but you can still pull it off. But in a minor progression, you gotta be out of there pretty fast. See if I can make something sound good. It's just so, there's a reason you don't get much of it. It's very uncommon. Again, to reiterate, you don't need to go deep in the weeds with music theory. Just remember that the major third, the higher note, a leading tone, always wins harmonically. So if you're trying to add color and you're going to be a half step away, be half step below, because it's not gonna be like pushing you over that cliff, like, oh my God, we're in the wrong key. It's going to sound like, you know, there's just a little dirt behind it, and you can use your bends and vibrato to kind of tease up on that major third, to kind of get closer to the actual dead-on tonality, the chord tones in there. Yeah, you heard that third. As soon as you hit it, you're like, the tonality changed. But if you do that in a major progression and slam a minor third, it's just, oh, sounds like blues. It doesn't sound like, and that's kind of the point. Yeah, so you think thirds sound better when you play it fast. Yeah, you got to get in and out of there, man. I mean, if you're playing in a band, you know, and the band is playing A minor, and you come in with the C sharp, you better get the hell out of there. I mean, really, it's just kind of true. Doesn't mean you can't play whatever you want, you know, like all notes are good notes, but there's a reason, you know. If the band's playing this and you come in with that, it sounds like you're playing something different. If the band's playing this, A major, and you come in with that, it just sounds like you're playing bluesy, because that's that sound. That's it. Anyhow, guys, if you're just tuning in, we're talking about mixing major and minor, both melodically and both when you're firing licks off over the 4-chord. I encourage you to try both. And I mentioned it at the beginning of this video, but for those of you that are just tuned in, there will be a link in this description after I wrap this up to a video where I went over both the major and minor versions of Midnight Rider by the Allman Brothers, you know, Duane Allman. And the reason I picked that as something to mention in here is because he does that vocally, what I just mentioned, saving that minor third as a vocal tag. It's like a signature Southern rock thing that he did better than basically everybody. So make sure you go back and check that out, and you'll hear that little, you know, and then right here, minor. Just that major, 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 minor for the tag, major. Great place to start. Robin, I appreciate that. I don't know if you noticed, but like the kind of mantra of this channel is practical guitar lessons. I like to give people singular takeaways that you can work on, like when you gig in bands and you're playing in songs. So take, you know, these big conceptual ideas and boil it down to one little takeaway that you can memorize and store forever. So like that's practical guitar lessons. That's kind of my thing. I like to, you know, I don't come from a making videos background. I come from a gigging background. And when you gig a lot and you do lots of different genres, because I wasn't in an original project, I was in cover projects, you know, pay to play stuff. And when you have to do a bunch of different genres back to back and play all kinds of different styles of music, and also I was an in-person teacher before I went online, and you have to teach all this stuff, you pick up these little pieces that you can just store away, you know. And so if you watch a lot of my videos, you're going to find that. And so this singular example of just when you're starting to wanting to sound a little bluesier, when you're playing country stuff, right? Just save that minor third and use it tastefully and use it as a tag in your melodies. And then if you're playing faster stuff, you're firing off more licks, you're burning a little bit, just know that every time you go over the 4-chord, challenge yourself to think minor and then go back to major. You're not going to solo like that the rest of your life or the rest of the gig or the rest of the song, but when you're practicing, give yourself 2 or 3 minutes where you're constantly going back and forth between major and minor in the same position and get used to that little switch. Where are they? So we're in the key of A. Everybody's got that little lick right there in minor. Just know that. There's your major third. We got it here. You know that there, and then up here. Just that little zone right there. Getting used to where those little minor thirds are in your major runs. That's it, man. And just always that 1, 2, 3. And then knowing where that minor third is, use that for flavor. All right. let's see here. Who else we got on here? Good to see you. Good to see New River. Good to see you, man. I appreciate the support. I really do. It's very hard to break in on YouTube, and I really do appreciate each and every one of you. I very much appreciate it. So if you have anything in particular you want to talk about at all, bring it up. Aries, I appreciate that. I really do. Dude, you guys are making my night. That's like the nicest comment ever, Robin. I really, really sincerely, it means a lot to me. It means a lot to me. Well, I'll play a little bit since I've been talking. So for you guys that have just tuning in, you're going to hear me. I'm going to do what I just said I'm going to do, what I just said to do, and that's play over a 1-4-5, all major chords. Don't worry about them being dominant. So for you guys that play a lot of country and stuff, and you're trying to sound a little bluesier, a little dirtier, switch back and forth to minor over the 4 chord. Oh wait, I just saw something from Robin real quick. How to solo without starting from the root, without having to link patterns. All right, so I'm going to add to what I was just going to do. I love it. See, it's what it's all about. So when you're teaching people stuff, right? And, you know, even just a good way to internalize things is to always do it from the root. It's excellent practice, but it's equally excellent practice to purposefully start and end your sentences, your phrasing, from different chord tones. Once you get past those chord tones, again, this is practice. This is not, you know, in a live scenario. And when you're practicing, once you get past chord tones, like your root third and your fifth, you can start doing it from extensions, but know that they're not going to sound just like the chord. So while most of us are very familiar with starting and ending our sentences, our phrases from the root, you probably haven't said, all right, you know what? This time through, I'm going to start and end everything on the third. And that's what I'm going to do. So if you do that, and then you also say, I'm going to start and end everything on the fifth the next time. You know what? I need to make a video on this exact subject. I think I probably will. If you do that, you'll get a sound for each one. You'll kind of get it in your ear, and your fingers will feel, you know, the kind of different shape because you're used to, you know, sitting on different things. But if you force yourself to focus on different chord tones, you're going to play new stuff. And so really that's the trick, is if you're always thinking about starting and ending my phrases on my root, everything's about the root, switching patterns based on the root, which is absolutely how you should start, is how you should begin, because that is the starting place. But if you've gotten past that and you want a little more, just take the same patterns and just focus on the thirds. So check it out. So I'm in A. If I'm in A, I'm in A major, right? In this shape, my major thirds are going to be my C sharp. So here, this triad, and my up here, this 1, 2, 3. You're starting on 3, right? Starting on 3. Now, I'm going to go through this just for the sake of being thorough a couple times where I'm just going to keep it all major. I'm not going to add in any different thirds, okay? But then after a few times through, I'm going to start doing what I said I was going to do before, and that's play those minor thirds around those 4 chords, right? And make the sound of that dominant 4 chord, that D7. And what I'm going to do, though, still is instead of starting and ending everything on the root, I'm going to make all the lines about the third. And you'll hear that it's the same tonality, right? But your lines are going to be a little different. You're forcing yourself to do something, you know, like logically. Okay, I did the first. Now I'm going to do the thirds. Then I'm going to do the fifths. And if you practice those things, you'll look at those things individually and have them each in your bag. All right, I'm talking too much. So let's get rid of that minor track and go back to major. So here we go. That's it. Just treat those as the root, Nathan. That's right. It's different. You got to kind of get used to hanging there. So now I'm going to add a couple minors in there. Minor, right? Track was a little offbeat. It's all right. We're live. So yeah, that's kind of, I hope that helps. But you want to just choose a diligent, like a specific practice routine, and you do exactly what Nathan said. Nathan, I appreciate you chiming in. Thanks for joining us, man. Treat them as the root and just force yourself. And it will sound consonant because you're playing a chord tone, but it will sound different than the root. And so after you do that a few times through, the next logical progression is say, okay, first time through, I'm going to focus on the root. Second time through, I'm going to play to the third. Third time through, I'm going to play to the fifth. And over time, that's how you kind of build your own sense of phrasing and melody, really more than anything, because you're going to constantly be interweaving those. That is a great little tangent to go on. Let me go back and make sure I didn't miss anything. Well, hello from Russia. Glad you're here. See, New River. Jen with the video, the dude at NAMM. He had a ball cap on. Let's see. I did a video with Mike Bradley, who's awesome. One of the neatest dudes on the planet. Certainly one of the best, my favorite YouTube personalities out there. Just killer player. Dude couldn't be nicer. Who did I have playing with that had a ball cap on? I have no idea, man. I have no idea. But NAMM was so much fun. And I appreciate you following the videos and that you find it fun to watch. Isaac, thank you so much, man. Yeah, see, you heard that minor in there. So Robin, so gotcha. Look for something like the thirds using each cave shape along the neck. Maybe pick a key and look for the location of the thirds. I can do that. Yeah, dude, that's it. It's just okay. So I showed you this shape. Let's say you're in this shape. Let's say we're in A. Now let's do D here. Let's say we're in the key of D, right? And you guys know this shape. If you know your shape, you just know that you're looking for F sharps, your thirds. If you know this pentatonic shape, you know that you're looking for, right? And those are your thirds. So if I'm playing an exercise, you know what? Since you asked for it, I'll give you an even simpler exercise. This will help all of you. Help me, man. Do a vamp. Do a vamp. Do one chord. Let's just do D. Oh, shit. Forgive me. I got to start this over. See, it's live. All right, here we go. So I just got D going. So I'm going to focus on roots. I'm going to start and end sentences based on roots. That's it, right? So right, super basic, you know, not even leaving different patterns. Now, I'm just going to do it, and I'm going to focus on the thirds. Now, let's do fifths. Where are fifths? A's, right? Now mix and match. Kind of messed up there a little bit. It's hard to stay in one zone in one chord and just play one pentatonic. I mean, this is you're practicing, but you get the point. Do that for each of your 5 cage patterns and for your pentatonics, major and minor, and you're going to be so far, you're going to be able to do most of the things that you want to do as far as mixing major and minor. Obviously from there, you know, you're going to grow past your cage patterns and all that stuff. For all you guys that are members on the site, I mean, you're probably weaseling through my whole course and might be in different parts of it. But yeah, that's the deal, man. That's what you want to do. You want to purposefully, you know, get used to focusing on other things than the root. And to get back to where we were kind of before, and then I saw a bunch of stuff up here, is, you know, when you're mixing major and minor, just that one note difference from that third to the minor third, practice just using it as a tag in melodies and practice firing licks off over the 4 chord and just going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And next time you're at a gig or playing with a friend or something, and you're going to see that simple, oh, D, A, G. And, you know, I play the same crap over and over again when I do that. You'll play something a little different. Just save that minor third, you know, and your bass player is going to look around, he's going to go, what was that? You're going to say, that was a flat 3, baby. I'm being funny, but what are you going to do? All right. Oh, let's see here. Let me make sure I didn't miss anything here. When I learned that major was 3 frets down from major, hoof-hearted, one doesn't make sense. I don't know how major can be 3 frets down from major, but see if you can reword that. Yeah, Nathan, sneaking the root every now and again. Obviously, home base, love it. Isaac, I appreciate it. Yeah, getting old, but finally starting to get it. It's simple stuff, man. Sometimes you just got to break it down and work on one little thing at a time. And every now and again, it'll be one little thing that is like the key that opens up this giant puzzle. And for each of us, it's a different little thing. But yeah, these little tidbits, you'll find that the people who do this the best, especially singers, you know, like the vocalists, the ones that are just the best are the ones that are like just so tasteful and save these little tiny melodic devices for the most poignant moments. They just save it for when it's perfect. They don't do it all the time. It's not like this show-offy type of thing where you're doing whatever. It's just, if you listen to like the greatest singers out there and sax players, you know, anything that can only do melodies, that can only do one note at a time, when they choose to harmonically change a little bit, it's so on purpose. You know, it is very, very poignant. There's a bunch of different adjectives I could use, but if you study a lot of those, especially soul singers, southern rock singers, things that are kind of in this vein where we're mixing major and minor, you'll see, they save those little moments. You know, they might have melodies that focus on the third, the fifth, or the root, but they change that major third, they change that flat 3 at like the perfect time, and that's always the hook, man. It's always the hook. So let's see what else we have here. Robin, do I offer private lessons via Skype? Sometimes. Email me at support@guitargate.com. And the reason I say sometimes is because my schedule is all over the place. So if you're looking for like an every Tuesday at 4, I'm not able to do that. But here and there, for people that are, you know, really interested, yes, of course, I will make time for you. So please shoot me a message at support@guitargate.com. And that goes along for anybody that's interested. For you guys that know me on the website, you know that I respond to basically everything. Sometimes it takes me a while because I just have a bunch. But I do respond to everything. So don't hesitate to shoot me a message. I always help however I can. There you go. Yeah, you're welcome. Good night. Good night, everyone. That's great. I will try and find it. You ask him, do you have a band? He said, no. You seem surprised. You all took turns improvising. I'm not following there. All right, Hoof-Hearted, favorite guitar player, or what was the first song you heard that made you want to play guitar? So I don't remember not playing the guitar really. I got one. I was given one when I was really a young kid. But my first guitar album that I had that I remember was Led Zeppelin, Houses of the Holy, on cassette. And that thing was absolutely awesome. That thing was absolutely fantastic. As far as my favorite guitar players, I like a very eclectic mix, but I lean heavily. I'd say I have a few basic zones, right? I think just like everybody, you go through different phases in your life where you're into different things. So the first phase of my life, you know, from when I was young through, you know, in high school or whatever, I liked heavy stuff, man. Pantera, Dimebag Darrell, like that was my thing. you know, like that you know, that sense of rhythm first came from metal, you know, where everything being a rhythmic element primarily, and then the actual harmony and the melody are almost entirely secondary. I mean, look at bands like Slayer. Like, clearly rhythm is number one and everything else is out. One of my favorite, I don't know, I'm going to butcher this, but I feel like when I was a kid, I read a Dimebag Darrell interview, and they asked him about Kerry King and Slayer, and he said, "You," I'm going to misquote him, but he said something along the lines of, "My favorite thing about Kerry King and Jeff Hanneman and Slayer is that all of us have this book, and it's this, you know, music theory book that explains why things sound good." And they just said, "You know what? I don't like that book. We're going to use this book over here that we're just going to make up." And if you listen to, when I went to GIT, they had a whole class, that a metal master class kind of thing. And I forget the name of my professor, but he used to always call Slayer atonal madness. But I loved it. Everybody, I mean, they're a huge band. And it is very much atonal often. So anyway, I'm getting off topic, but that sense of everything being, you know, rhythmic sections first and then notes second, that part of me comes from being a metalhead as a child, especially like Pantera, those big power grooves. Dimebag was the man. Then obviously I got really into Stevie and Eddie for obvious reasons. It doesn't really need to be, you know, what can you say? Then I got really into funk, like, but not like James Brown funk guitar, like still in that Jimmy kind of zone, like Eddie Hazel, like P-Funk, like went deep down the P-Funk train. So like heavier, more rock-based funk stuff. Then when I was out in California, I got bit by the bluegrass bug really hard, and I got super deep for, I don't know, 8-10 years. I'm still kind of on the trip, for chicken picking, just flat top country, you know, Appalachian country stuff. And that's when I really like players like Doc Watson is my number one guy, where I really fell in love with simple melodies, especially Doc Watson played fiddle lines on guitar better than anyone, and did the accompaniment. And like, that's when I really first got melody, is when I got into that style of music and started listening to like Vassar Clements on fiddle. It might be my favorite musician of all time. Like for real. And those single note lines over simple 3-4 chord songs where it's mostly diatonic, but again, those little melodic things that really tasteful, really smart, you know, sophisticated players use and where they choose to put those in, I totally took me down a whole new path. And I've been on that path for, I'd say, 10 years or so. And I'm still very much on that vein. And then at least maybe it was 4 years ago, something like that, or 5 years ago, that's when I started hybrid picking. That's when I found, you know, Danny Gatton and, you know, all those famous hybrid pickers. And, you know, but I started in bluegrass first, and then slowly, you know, your Brad Paisleys, you know, whatever, where it's country, but it's that hybrid thing. So yeah, I know that's a super long-winded answer, but yeah, Dimebag Darrell, metalhead as a kid, funk stuff, bluegrass stuff, and obviously Stevie Ray Vaughan, Eddie Van Halen, and Jimi Hendrix. I mean, that's my path. You know, maybe next I'll get bit by the jazz bug and I'll go even deep down the rabbit hole, even deeper rather. But yeah, that's kind of my little story. Let's see what else you have here. Robin, so awesome, inspiring, and depressing. It shouldn't be depressing at all. We're just having fun. Listen, I don't think anybody should pick this thing up if they're not trying to have a good time. Like that's the point. That is the point of this thing. And the fact that I get to teach this online for a living to you guys, and we're having fun. And like I'm in my basement, the kids are asleep. Like this is the coolest thing in the world. It's the internet, man. Yeah, when you heard Sultans, it blew you away. Yeah, of course. Yeah, New River. I hear you, man. I love all that stuff. John Mayer, Warren Haynes is so good. David Gilmour, of course. Dude does more than one note than all of us can do with every note. He's one of those super tasteful guys. And he's got all the sounds too. He's got all the sounds. You know, he's one of those guys that, you know, we can all get lost in our gear, but the Edge is this way too. And the Edge doesn't get enough credit, where you get the perfect sound for the perfect one note or the perfect one bend or whatever it is. Because a lot of times you get these super complex sounds and you're not playing to that sound, or the sound isn't matching all the notes. It kind of gets washed away. But Gilmour is one of those dudes where like the tone, the effects, the phrasing, the note choices, it's all always perfect. It's literally all always perfect. Dickie Betts, yeah, Jerry Garcia. Yes, so I see you mentioned Jerry Garcia and John Mayer. I don't know if anybody else has seen any of the Dead and Company stuff, but John Mayer is like doing that about as good as I can imagine it being done. Like it was very, very, very good. You can tell that dude is a true blue, you know, go to the woodshed, practice for a long time guitar player. And I'm just super impressed. Super impressed. I mean, that stuff is super strong, like preposterously strong. Hoof-hearted, you're very welcome. And thank you for saying so. Kafir Obolong. Yes. Kafir is the man. Yes, Kafir is the man. And advice for playing with feeling, Paul. All right, Paul, I'm going to end this with you, unless anybody else has anything that really jumps in. Nathan Madden, do you have to land on either the third or the root when adding the fifth? You don't have to do anything, man. But what you want to do is try to specifically do each one of those each time, and you'll get a feel for what you like and what you hear in your head. Like there's a reason you like the stuff that you like. When you do this type of practicing where you say, I'm going to focus on the fifth, I'm going to focus on the root, or I'm going to focus on bends or vibrato, which we're about to talk about. When you do that, then the next time, and that sound gets in your ear and in your fingers, the next time you go and learn a solo from one of your favorite players that plays a favorite solo, you're going to make that mental connection and say, that sounds good because he's going to the third, right? Like you're gonna start putting those pieces together. When you start, it's what I call active listening. When you start purposefully trying to put a name to a sound, not because knowing music theory will make you a better player, but when you can put a name to a sound and you get, you know, your finger patterns, right? Your what do you call it? A tactile connection to a sound as well. When all that becomes like kind of one thing by over and over again, you know, forcing yourself to practice these things, when you learn new stuff that you love or old stuff, you're going to say, oh man, that's why I like it. And when you can identify specifically what you like about something, then you can take that and you can put it in a completely different genre, in a completely different sound. You're not just saying, oh, I love that Gilmour lick, I'm going to use it over here. It's no, like I like playing that minor third over that 4 chord and letting it hang over to that 5. Whatever it is, once you think of it that way, then you're not copying, pasting licks. You're able to take that and absorb it and make it yours and use it in whatever context you want. So that's the beauty of learning, of forcing yourself to learn these little connection points. Anyhow, let's get back to advice for playing with feeling. So, feeling means different things for different people. Let me think about this. Yeah, my best advice. So when I think about feeling, right? Obviously, we're playing a stringed instrument. The people that play with what sounds like the most feeling, in my opinion, what I think about when you say that word feeling, is it sounds most like a voice. I think whether it's a horn or violin or whatever it is, you're always trying to make it sound like a voice. It's probably hardest to do on like a piano, like non-string instruments where you can play louder or softer, but you can't move the inflection of the actual note, right? You can't bend the note. You can't add any vibrato. And what singers do that no one else can really truly do like a singer is bend through a tone, add vibrato, and be able to go up and down with volume because they're pushing more or less air in, right? Really good sax players can do it. Really good fiddle or violin players can do it. It's harder on guitar. But the point I'm trying to make here is that the best advice I can give you is to learn melodies. Simple melodies. Melodies where you have to stay on notes for a while. And if you have to stay on a note for a while, then you're going to be forced to use a little vibrato to make sure it sustains. And it's going to be very clear if your vibrato is going way over what it needs to do, or if it's not doing enough. So, again, there are many different kinds of feeling, but if you're looking for a place to start, this is where I would recommend starting. I'll use the same example I started this video with, right? That right? That Allman Brothers. So you have 3 notes here, and you want to just hear the song in your head because there's something about vocal lines, melody lines that we just kind of remember in time and in tune, and just their inflection. For some reason, I guess just because we're people and they're people, you remember it. Most people, I know I certainly do, but I feel like I can confidently say this is a thing. We remember vocal lines, hooks, melodies much more accurately than we do an instrumental line. So if you hear that in your head, however that goes, it's too high for me to sing with it. But if you just don't do any vibrato, right, and you go, whatever it is, you're playing technically, close enough in time, and you're playing the notes, but it doesn't have it at all. It's just there's no feeling there, right? Nothing. So the best advice, first place to start, when you're going to hang on notes, right? Can you guys hear that little difference, that little movement? I recommend starting small on purpose. So I don't have a lot of gain on here, right? There's nothing really happening. I got this thing on single coils. It'll sustain a little more, or at least it'll be audible a little more if I put it on humbuckers, but I kind of like it on singles. And so what I'm doing is I'm going back and forth like a violin. I'm not going up and down. We'll do that next. We'll do that second, right? But first, you want to go this way, right? Just like a voice would. A voice goes up and down. So hear the movement. So now if you do too much vibrato, see that you're playing with more vibrato, but it's not necessarily feeling. So I recommend starting small, trying to hear what the voice is doing for that melody line, and trying to find the proper vibrato for that. Now, like if you're doing Janis Joplin leads, you're going to have all kinds of vibrato, right? So it's different for everyone. But if you start small and work up, forward and back, that's a great place to start. Next thing, of course, you can do up and down vibrato, but again, small. You can always add more. Next thing to do is when you're going to notes, just like a voice, they don't actually, for the most part, stop playing and then re-enter, right? It's one breath. So you can do that with the slide or a bend. Pull-offs, hammer-ons, pull-offs, any of those slurs. Getting used to doing slurs to go in between notes quickly is key, absolutely crucial to playing with feeling, so you don't lose that breath like a singer would have. And there's so many other things. There's so many other things to work on. But yeah, I see a couple other things popping up, so I want to jump there. But the best advice I can give you as a place to start is pick 2 or 3 of your favorite vocal melodies. They're going to be simple probably, which is great. Preferably slow songs, you know, or slower. Things where you're forced to focus on your vibrato and your slides and like your little runs there, right? Doing your slurs, trying to sound like a voice. Find some melodies, figure out the notes of the melodies, and see if you can get close on your guitar. That's the best way to start. I'm going to leave it at that. That's a great question. Another great video idea. I feel like I'm going to watch this and then go back and make like 3 or 4 YouTube videos of like 5-minute segments of this. This is fantastic. All right, let's see what else I got here. Oh, let's see here. All right, guitar question, New River. I get confused on mixing major and minor pentatonic. So A minor is the 5th fret, right? First position, maybe. Then they say C major pentatonic is the 8th fret, but it seems the same notes. All right, you're mixing and matching your terminology a little bit. Not a big deal. So here's A, 5th fret, C, 8th fret. Now you said both major, or sorry, A minor and C major. Sorry, you're correct. I just misread it. See, it's my fault. They are the same notes. Check this out. A minor. C major. Now I'm going to show you exactly how you should practice them. If you guys want to see an extended video on this, there's obviously on GuitarGate, but if you want to see a free one, just search Improvising 101 on my channel. And it's an old video, but it goes over this exact thing. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to play a vamp of A minor, and then I'm going to play a vamp of C major. And what I'm going to do is over the A minors, I'm going to focus. I'm going to start and tell my story on A, right? Remember, we just talked about this, about playing about your roots, right? And then playing about your thirds, whatever. But I'm going to make this very, very elementary and specific. I'm going to focus on A's over my A minor. Then when it goes to C major, it's the exact same shape. It's the exact same notes. It's relative majors and minors. Your one chord is always the relative major of your 6 minor chord. However you want to look at that. So if A is 6, B 7, C is 1, 1 and 6 are always the same key. Except, why do they sound different? I'm sure why you're getting confused is because you're like, they're the same notes. If they're the same notes, how can it be a different scale? And the answer, of course, is that everything exists in context. Notes don't mean anything by themselves without the chords underneath. So the reason people can make it sound like you're playing chords, even though they're just playing a lead by themselves, is because they're spelling out the notes in that chord. They're creating that context. But when you're learning to do this, you just want to focus on the root. So check it out. You're going to hear the difference. You're going to hear it right away. So here's A minor. Now C major. So over A minor, I'm going to focus on A's. Here's your C, same shape. I'm going to focus on C's. So check it out. A. That's my C, right? Back to A. So that's the point. If you're playing in a C major context, you can have the same notes as A minor, but if you're starting and you're stopping your sentences around the C's, if the story is about C, it's going to sound like C because you're playing a C. And if you take those same notes and you play it over A minor, and you switch your focus to sell A minor, to sound A minor-ish. Your story is A minor. You chose A minor, right? Then it's going to sound like A minor. And that's it in a nutshell, man. That, relative majors and minors are the same notes, but it's the context in which those notes occur, and where they live. It's the sound, it's the chord you're playing over that makes it sound major or sound minor. It's that simple. I hope that's helpful and that makes sense. Let's keep going here. Let's go in here. Robin, I appreciate it. Good night, man. Shoot me an email. Yes, the relative major is 3 frets up, right? So if you are in A minor, well, 4, however you want to think about it, it's 3 half steps. So if you're at 5, this is your minor, A minor. It's major. That's why E minor is the same as G major, right? Why D minor is the same as F, right? Or C sharp minor is the same as E. That's it. You have, in any key, you have 7 chords. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The formula is whole step, half step, whole step, half step. Your 1, 4, 5 chords are major. 2, 3, 6 are minor. 7's diminished. Don't need to worry about diminished yet. And whatever your 1 chord is, your 6 chords are relative minor. It's always going to be, 1.5 steps down. That's it. Oh, Paul, wouldn't you have to go from the fifth to the root note of the note you want to highlight to really let the listener know that you're telling another story? All right, I think I see what you're saying. You're saying play or accentuate more than one chord tone. So not just the root of each chord. And yes, of course, the fifth is one of those chord tones, and that makes perfect sense. Although it is far and above the third that creates the sound and the quality of a chord more so than the root, especially the major third. Like I said in the beginning of this, the major third always wins, man. That is a thing. So when you are playing something like this, where it's a relative major and a relative minor, and you want to make it clear that you're telling a story of not just A, but A minor, and then not just C, but C major, yeah, you want to accentuate play in a way that doesn't just focus on those roots, but the whole chord. So how would we do this? And it's tricky over a vamp with relative majors and minors. It's tricky. So if we're in A minor here, let's say in this position. By the way, I call this pattern 4 for Cage, C-A-G-E, right? E being the fourth letter in the acronym. This is the E shape, pattern 4. It's how I was taught at GIT. And then pattern 3 for C major here. What you want to do, I got a little sidetracked there. What you want to do is visualize where your triads are. For A minor, you got one here, right? That's your A, C, and E. Get one here, E, C, and A, right? C, A, and E, and that's it in this pattern. So there, there, in there. For C major, you don't have as many options. You have these two, right? It's straight across here, right? So that's E, C, and G. So C is in both. That's key. C is in both. So it's the other notes which are really going to make the difference, right? And E's in both, right? It's the G. It's the G that's different between A and C. That's the chord tone that changes. And you have this little triad here and this one. So if I'm playing A minor, I'm really going to try to focus on here and play about the A's and the other notes. If I'm like, then C. It's hard without the chords playing over for relative major and minor to tell the difference, because it's literally the same harmony. So it's very nuanced, right? That's why I'm saying these notes don't really mean anything without the chords. I mean, you can really imply, look at that bend. Right? I mean, you could sort of do it, but it really needs chords for relative majors and minors. But yes, to answer your question, the more chord tones you play, the more it's going to sound like that chord. The more you're going to be telling that story about that thing. Yes, absolutely. Fantastic question. Oh, let's see. Alvin Lee, nice. I appreciate that. You recently got back into harmonic minor scales. I noticed not all for even though are all minor. Why would this be? Wait. Let me see. Maybe reread that. I noticed not all for even though they are all minor. Why would this be? I am not positive what you mean by that. But I can tell you this, that also if you search on my channel, you can search for a video on harmonic minor. I think it's called Don't Sweat Harmonic Minor. Because the key to harmonic minor, not all fit. What'd you say here? Not all fit, even though they are all minor. You mean the chords don't fit? Is that what you're saying? Yeah, well, I'm waiting for him to respond. New River, yes. Yes. Your favorite players do play triads and inversions and solo over the chord tones. That's it, man. That's the thing. You ask all really, really comfortable players that are comfortable everywhere on their neck, regardless of genre. I feel like triads are the big thing for everybody. Everybody is pretty much in agreement that if you learn just your major and minor triads, if nothing else, and your pentatonics everywhere on the neck, you're like 95% there. So yes, and what you were saying about a lot of teachers say minor pentatonic position 2 over top of position 1. They say that's mixing major and minor. I don't like to look at that way. That's not incorrect by any means, but I highly recommend that when you're starting to mix major and minor, that you do it one note at a time. In melodies, just do that one little tag. If you're trying to do little licks and in patterns, stay in one pattern that you alter from a major pattern to a minor pattern. Don't switch to another one. And just do it in those little bite-sized pieces, because you're going to internalize the change more. I really think that's important, and I can't stress that enough. All right, so Nathan says the scale over the chord. So even though the scales are harmonic, they don't fit over an A minor chord. It seems to me. All right, Nathan, I'm going to give you the deal about harmonic minor. Okay, now try not to. Let me put this a different way. This is not the only deal with harmonic minor, okay? This is an overly simplistic, attempt to be extremely practical, okay? But check this out. For those of you that are unfamiliar, harmonic minor is a minor scale. So 1, 2, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 6, but with a major 7th. Your regular minor scale, of course, has a flat 7. Now, the reason that harmonic minor has a major 7th is because that note is the third, the major third of a dominant 5 chord. Don't get lost on me. Just stay with me. The reason harmonic minor exists, the purpose, the function of harmonic minor is to have a minor progression with a dominant 5 chord. That's it. That's it. If you're in A minor, right? And let's say it's a 1, 4, 5. But then you go to the 5, and you don't want that. You want a real 5 chord. You want a real deal dominant 5 chord that really wants to resolve, that really wants to go home. major third right there. That G sharp right there in the key of A. That's your major seventh, your leading tone. Or we talked about in this whole series that major third always wins. The leading tone, the higher tone, always wants to resolve up. That is the function of harmonic minor. You're thinking minor all day, not in any of those chords. But baby, when you get to that 5 chord, that real dominant 5 chord, that's where you're going to get that major third of the 5 chord, which is the 7th of that harmonic minor scale, right? And that's what's going to get you over. So, how do you practice harmonic minor? If you're going super fast and you're burning like some neoclassical stuff, like some Yngwie, then yeah, you can play. Look, the faster you play, the more liberty you have to throw in a bunch of random stuff, right? But if you're taking your time over something, you don't have that luxury. So a practical approach to playing harmonic minor is save it for the 5 chord, and you are looking for the third of that 5 chord, which is the 7th, right, of your key center. Check it out. I'll show you. We'll just keep it in A. We'll keep it in the same vein. Check it out. So, A minor. Four. D minor. We'll make it longer. I'm going to think A minor all day. Again, overly simplistic approach. Not the only use for harmonic minor. But the reason harmonic minor exists is because people wanted a dominant 5 chord in a minor progression. So you have that super strong pull back to home, but instead of resolving major like a dominant 5 chord does diatonically, you just go to the minor chord because it sounds awesome. So when you're soloing over something especially slow like that, you can't just play willy-nilly and play that major 7th all over that because it's not going to sound right because it's not in the chords and it's not going to sound right because, again, remember I told you that higher note always wins. If you're playing an A minor 7, right, which is diatonic, and you come in with a major 7th over that, all of a sudden you're in James Bond land, right? Like it sounds like you changed something. But if you're doing minor, you know, and all of a sudden you go, but it's the 5 chord, that's a chord tone, that's your major third. That's the function of harmonic minor in a practical application. 90% of the songs you're going to come across if you're gigging or playing in, you know, bands around town or, you know, even doing a lot of professional gigs, you're not going to have an overload of tunes that, you're going to be taking a lead in harmonic minor over the whole thing. No, what you're going to be doing is that you're in a minor progression, and then when you get to the 5 chord, which is dominant, then you play that major third of the 5 chord, which is the major 7th. That's harmonic minor. If it's a fast tune, you can burn over it a little bit. Or if you feel like being adventurous, you can, be more adventurous. But for the most part, you're going to save it till then, because every other time it's just going to sound like you're trying to play harmonic minor and not just sound like those chords. Because again, it's all about context. Hope that makes sense. Hope that's helpful. It seems to me, Nathan, I'm glad it's helpful. Yeah, man, dude, that's the thing, dude. I feel like so many teachers and players in general get stuck in the mindset of, I need to learn this new scale because I've heard about it. I know it, and it's this new sound that I don't have in my bag. But the real truth is that in practical gigging and playing and teaching scenarios, the different modes, all these different scale choices, they really only exist, or the only real practical function to them is that they give you that one note difference that gives you that chord tone where it works over that thing. I'll give you an example. Dorian, right? Dorian. People are like, oh, I got to learn Dorian. Well, what makes Dorian different than your minor scale is just the 6th. So again, if I'm in A minor, instead of playing right, that F, you play F sharp, right? So you might say to yourself, all right, so that's a whole new scale. I'm just going to play in Dorian all day, and I don't even know how to do that stuff. It's not very good, because that's just not how I think about it. How I think about it is, if I'm in A minor and I have an F sharp, I'm thinking that means I have D major. That is the third. That is the third of my 4 chord. So whatever I do, whatever chords I choose, I'm only going to play Dorian, right? If I'm getting that F sharp in a chord tone. So that's going to be either a D major chord or something where the D major triad is in there, like a B minor 7, right? So if I had a progression that either went like minor 1, major 4, or A minor 7 to a 2 minor 7. Point being is I'm getting that. That's when you use Dorian. You use Dorian when you have a minor progression that goes to a chord that's got an F sharp in it, right? That's got that 6th. And if you put that in context, you'll hear it. Oh, God, I didn't even start it. All right, here we go. So. So, what's Dorian? Start with just your A minor pentatonic, right? Because you're just focusing on key center, not chord tones. So, that's not saying anything about that F sharp. It's not saying anything about the note that makes this different. If this was a regular 1 to 4, it'd be D minor, but since it's D major, it's the note, right? And as soon as you play that and you choose to focus on that in this context, you're going to hear that Santana-ish sound, which is that sound of Dorian. But all it really is the sound of that major 6, it's the third of your 4 chord. So that's the point. Whether it's harmonic minor or Dorian or Mixolydian or any of these other things, yes, they are their own scales. Yes, they can be looked at their own moment in time. But a practical approach to playing them for people that play a lot of different gigs, a lot of different songs, learn a lot of stuff, teach a lot of stuff, you'll find that there's usually 1 to 2 specific common uses for each of these variations on just majors and minor scales. It's always to achieve a chord tone for a progression that's got something a little outside. And for those of you that are trying to figure out how to find scales that fit over chords and it doesn't seem to fit in any of this stuff, stick with the notes in the chord, man. Root, 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 third, 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 fifth, 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 seventh, seventh, seventh. Figure it out. But that's the thing. These different scales always serve a specific function. The little one-note change always serves a specific function. Now I'm going to bring it back before we wrap it up to where we started tonight, and that's mixing major and minor. And just to recap, the reason that little switch to minor works over the 4 chord is because you're implying that dominant 7th chord for a blues. That's why it sounds bluesy, because when we're playing a blues, you're used to hearing that dominant 4 chord. So when you switch to A major, from A major to A minor, and back to major, that's why your ears don't balk at it, because you're used to hearing it. There's that one little note change is always to represent a change in the harmony, right? Or add a little color against that harmony. And when you're starting to add in minor to major progressions, that's how I recommend starting. Definitely click the link in the description here and check out that Allman Brothers video I mentioned a few times, because it's going to have a great example of this. But start with the melody, keep it major, 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 tag minor at the end. And then if you're doing more lick pattern-based stuff, play minor over the 4 and stick to major to the 1 and the 5 and just get used to that sound, get used to that switch. But switch your patterns in one shape, one spot of the neck. I will check one more, but then I'm going to go to bed because it's 1 o'clock in the morning over here. I really appreciate you all tuning in here and supporting my channel, my website, and thank you. Fantastic. Okay, let's see here. New River, you are very, very welcome. Yeah, it's 1 a.m. I'm calling it here in a minute or two. Let me just see what else we got here. What looper pedal are you using? I'm using the Boss RC3. Simple, easy, doesn't break, nothing wrong with it. Nothing wrong with the line 6 you have there too. Nathan, I appreciate that. Well, for anybody that likes my style of teaching, again, I try to make everything as practical as possible. You know, just can you use it in a song on a gig? Not this conservatory shotgun approach, but like, you know, harmonic minor means play the 7th over that 5 chord. Singular things that you're going to go and you're going to take that to your next gig, and you're going to have a 5 chord coming around and you're going to nail that 7th, and you're going to be like, yeah, and you're going to remember that for life. My whole website and channel is dedicated to that type of thing and step by step. So for anybody that's watching that would like to take my full program, it's $10 a month. It's guitargate.com. I'd love to be your teacher more in depth. And whenever you're a member of the site, you can request videos internally. You can post videos completing the lesson, so you can actually show me like, hey, am I doing this right? And I watch them all and respond. It is an engaged community, so I would highly recommend you think about joining if you guys like this style of lesson. There's tons of lessons and instructors on YouTube. We're all extremely different and geared towards completely different people's goals, but that's me. I like to do practical stuff for people to use that, you know, you can take it away. Anyhow, that's it. I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much. I really appreciate each and every one of you. Those of you that know me well know that that's extremely true and that I sincerely value your support. Thanks for staying up with me. I wish you a good night. And I hope to see each of you over at guitargate.com posting some videos. If not, you can always shoot me an email at support@guitargate.com. I will still help you any way I can. And tell your friends, subscribe to this channel if you would. All good things. And remember, if you do nothing else, just keep it in your hands. You'll keep getting better. Cheers.